I'm Wayne Carey, and this is The Truth Hurts. Well, weekends now are very different for me, Ayrton, and I know what you're thinking straight away,
Yes.
but obviously I don't have to be at the footy, so I've got a little bit more spare time on my hands. And I tell you what, on the weekend, I've discovered a gem.
Oh, here we
I've
go.
discovered an absolute gem, and what it is. And look, for a lot of people out there, they'll be going, "Oh yeah, what's Duck get up to?" And I'm not talking about spa parties or anything like that, but and a lot of people know about Fitzroy. A lot of people do. They know about.
Has been around for a little while.
Yeah, they know about Brunswick Street. BT's been banging on about this for years because I know he's got a little property in Fitzroy, and I have been there once with him, but I went there yesterday.
Don't tell me you're going hipster. Now,
What a place! Not one person gives a stuff of who you are or what you do. They don't. No one even turns, and no one even looks at you.
well, you know why, don't you? They don't know who you are. There.
So I spoke last week about going on the. You know, if you're on the run, you're basically on the Gold Coast. This is, if you want to be in hiding, if you're up to no good, just go to Fitzroy. You're not going to end up in the social pages if you go to Fitzroy, Brunswick Street, because no one cares. No one cares what anyone else does. It was an absolute experience. I think it was called the Black Cat or something I went to, and a couple of other little venues that you pop into, and you just walk down there. And obviously the attire, I'd probably have to change my attire.
You're a bit overdressed maybe there? Or?
Well, I looked like I was going to the Portsea Polo. It'd be fair to say I stood out.
Yeah.
But once again, even though you're not wearing what everyone else is wearing there, no one cares.
You're not a whole lot of chat about Pagan's paddock or anything like that.
No, that is my new. And any AFL footballer or any young fella or young woman out there that wants to just get away from if you want to be noticed, you go to the Yesby or places like that, or into the city. You go to all the common places. But if you don't want to be noticed, get to Brunswick Street. I loved it. Had an absolute ball.
That's some great advice, I reckon. Brunswick Street. It's a bit out of the way for me, but have gone there a few times over the journey, every now and then. But big week for you this week, Duck. You travelling this week? You going anywhere?
Travelling. No, I think I've got to go up to the country on the weekend.
Not going overseas, or
no? I was in Singapore 2 weeks ago.
I did know that. Yeah, for a lunch.
That's an interesting place, Singapore.
Tell me why.
No, I can't tell.
I was getting at the Coronation. Surely you've got an invite. The King.
By the way, I'm a big royal family person. And you know what? And I love Meghan.
No, come on.
And I love Harry.
Come on.
No, I know it's a bit like whether you like coriander or whether you don't. I know there's a lot of people out there that are against Harry and Meghan. I'm massive, and I know they're not in the royal family anymore. But I love Harry and Meghan. I love the Queen. She helped me out not all that long ago. She took me off the front pages. But I do, and I know the King is obviously.
You know him.
Well, no, I don't, but I know he's about to be given his crown, so to speak. So, no, I'm a big follower. Seriously, I love Meghan and Harry.
When you share a title with the King, I'm sure you would be. There's also been a big change at the top of the AFL this week. Official that Gillon McLachlan is going to be out, at least in a few months' time. Andrew Dillon is going to be his successor. Not a big surprise. Andrew Dillon's been at the AFL. Are you surprised, though, at how long this has taken to happen?
How much money do you reckon they've spent on this process?
Hundreds of thousands it would be.
Hundreds of thousands?
Well, they've got an external person to do this worldwide search.
What a waste of money. What a waste of money. I mean, let's be honest. The last two appointments, obviously Gill took over from Andrew, which everyone knew, and they've gone through this whole process, and yet the candidate was sitting right under their nose the whole time. So they've wasted all this money for nothing, when I reckon 100% he was going to get it anyway.
Andrew Dillon, a very good operator.
I don't. By the way, I'd have no problem with Andrew Dillon taking over the job. I have nothing against. Fantastic, but why make out you're going through a process when you're not? You're not.
Is it a boys' club? It's funny. I saw a photo of him today alongside Simon Lefley, and they played footy together at Old Zavs. And so there is this.
It is a boys' club, no doubt about it.
Footy on the weekend. Some big results again. Collingwood. they've done it again, come back from 22 points down against Adelaide in a low-scoring game. What did you make of that?
How do they keep doing it? What I will say is that the umpiring in that last quarter has to be one of the worst umpiring performances nearly in the history of the game. How many mistakes could they make in one passage? And by the way, it all went against Collingwood, and they still managed to get up and win. Quite remarkable when you think about their last year and a half. It has been so impressive to win so many games, and for that reason, that's why I thought Collingwood were going to struggle this year. And I've said that a number of times now because I thought they can't just keep winning these close games. Well, yes, they can. And I'll tell you why, because they play high-risk footy, high risk, high reward, and that's why they get away with games. That's why they can come from behind. But they just take the game on, and then other sides tighten up. They know that they're coming. So sides now know that Collingwood are going to play to the final siren. Surely they have to continue to play to the final siren. That
was the big thing, wasn't it? Adelaide, like Essendon, just seemed to stop, and they stopped playing their game in that.
Exactly right. It's like they choke up. They stiffen up, and Collingwood just keep playing with a freedom and take it on. And, well done. What a performance.
Sydney got them last year, I think it was in the prelim, so they just missed out on the grand final. They are going to have moments where they're gettable. I'm sure Craig McRae would wish that they're not 4 goals down every game. I watched another team yesterday, which is Geelong, who have obviously won the premiership, and they started slowly. Have you got Collingwood ahead of Geelong at the moment? Who's the premiership favourite right now? With Collingwood, I think ahead of maybe your expectations, but Geelong sort of back where we expected them to be.
Oh, for me, it's Melbourne and Geelong. I think they're my favourites. Probably Collingwood and a couple of others just behind them. But I think you nailed it when you said they're giving you a chance, Collingwood. I mean, sides are playing some really good footy against them, but they're finding a way to win. So that's a feather in their cap. So they've got some weaknesses.
So how can they get better, Collingwood?
Oh, they need a key position forward. As simple as that. And, we know that McStay's there. He's injured at the moment, but I don't think he solves their problems. So that's their weakness for me.
At the other end of the table, some really ugly results. Carlton smacked West Coast. Melbourne really dominated North Melbourne, particularly in the first quarter. Are you concerned there about North Melbourne in particular, given that we had so much hope around Alistair Clarkson to start the season?
Well, it just goes to show you that if you don't have the players, it doesn't matter how good the coach is. And I think we're seeing that at North Melbourne. I mean, they won a couple of games, obviously, at the start of the year, but their last 3 weeks have been terrible. So, they've got, who many people believe is, the greatest modern-day coach, certainly in the last 20 or so years, and yet he's not getting any better results than what Noble got, a year ago.
You've got a bit of a theory here, which I've been heard thrown around this morning. I'm not sure about it, though. Can you just explain to me what you mean when you're talking about coaches?
Coaches don't make teams. Teams make coaches. Players make coaches. It's not.
Jeez, you've cut up rough on Dennis after last week.
It's not the other way around.
So you're saying that you would have won those flags without Dennis?
No, Dennis certainly made us better. He harnessed a group, but at the end of the day, he had talent. And I think all sides. I mean, you look at Lee Matthews. I think what Lee Matthews did at Collingwood in 1990 was far more impressive than what he did at Brisbane. I mean, Brisbane, he had an unbelievable team. Don't get me wrong. It was, and what Clarkson did in 2008 was better than what he did with the three-peat, because I don't think that list was better than the 3 flags in a row in those particular years.
So the counter argument to that is there are talented lists who don't win, and there's the personalities that you need to harness, and you need to garner this team spirit. You've got to be tactically on your game. So that you're saying that doesn't come into it?
No. Coaches can certainly make teams better. There's no doubt. But in general, I think most of the time the players are certainly the ones that enhance the coach's reputation.
So Ross Lyon made a difference?
McRae's made a difference.
Brad Scott,
in saying that, so Nathan Buckley couldn't coach?
Well, he got him to a grand final. So
in one of his years, yeah. But in all the other years, basically, what's that? McRae having the results that he's having now, it's all saying, well, Ben Rutten obviously didn't get it right, because I think Essendon are performing way better as well. But North Melbourne aren't performing any better.
Well, they did win 2 games, but
their last 3 weeks is a flashback to last year.
No, absolutely. You're right. You're right on North Melbourne. It's going to be a long year for the Roos and some more injuries as well. I watched with interest this morning in the NBA playoffs. Steph Curry dropped 50 points as Golden State beat Sacramento. Game 7 deciding game of their series. So a huge performance from Steph sets up this massive showdown with LeBron James in the Lakers, the Western Conference semi-finals. It got me thinking about international sporting stars. And, as a youngster, I had these guys that, I sort of looked up to, whether it be your Tiger Woods or these sort of people. I'm interested in your thoughts, and we're slightly different vintages in terms of the people we'd be looking at. But who in your time did you really admire? Was it your Michael Jordan, or who in your mind did you look up to?
As a young kid, I grew up loving Muhammad Ali, and I had a chance to meet him in 1998, but actually said no because I had a grand final to play.
No.
Yeah, I had a grand final, and if I'd met Muhammad Ali,
which year was this? Sorry.
98.
98. So when did he want to meet? What day did he want to? On
the Friday before the game.
Okay.
So after we did the parade, they said, you've got a chance to go and meet Muhammad. And I thought, and like I said, my absolute hero, the one person, I think of Nelson Mandela, I think of Muhammad Ali. I would have loved to, I think Bill Clinton. I would have loved to, I thought Bill was a great president, highly intelligent. But I knew that if we lost, that Denis would say, you know what, son, thinking about meeting Muhammad Ali rather than playing footy. And then when the siren went, we lost anyway. I was absolutely shattered.
Did you think you might have been able to do it and maybe keep it quiet or do it on?
Well, how are you going to keep meeting Muhammad Ali quiet?
Well, what was the setting? What was it? Where
I don't know. His people spoke to my people. Remember, I was pretty big back then. They would have rang Ricky Nixon. But I did meet my other hero, so the theme's the same. I got a chance to meet Mike Tyson. I was in Vegas, just strolling around the Wynn Casino, like a lost little lamb. Didn't know where I was going. I think I might have been going to the blackjack table actually, and I hear someone yell out, "Duck, duck!" And I thought, no one knows, me in Vegas. And I looked around, and there's Jeff Fenech with Mike Tyson, and they had a fair entourage around them. And as they're walking towards me, I was in awe. And
as you would be.
And I don't think I've met anyone in football terms. I think Lee Matthews has a presence, and I remember Tony Lockett. When I first met Tony Lockett, he just had an absolute presence about him. And seeing Mike Tyson, who's obviously I'm taller than, but
there's a level of show business too with boxing, isn't there, as well?
He had more presence than Santa. I was just sitting there staring at him, and I thought, this is getting quite embarrassing. By the way, Mark Philippoussis was in the entourage as well, and we were walking through, and Jeff said, "Come and have a drink with us." So I thought, yeah, no worries, but I didn't want to look like I was dagging him. For those who don't know what dagging is, that's sort of, just following him around like a little pilot fish, a little lost puppy. But so we sat in a restaurant bar, sat there just basically staring at him. Did
he know who you were by this stage?
No. Well, he wouldn't have a clue who I was.
Did Jeff Fenech sort of?
Well, Jeff then started to tell Mike that, and I thought, yeah, keep going, Jeff, keep going. So he started to give Mike all my stats. And then once he'd finished that, because I was sitting there trying to work out a time or how I was going to ask him for a photo.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I've never asked anyone for a photo.
The
only time I've asked someone to have a photo. And I'm trying to think of the right timing. And just as Jeff stopped peeing in my pocket about me, I thought this is the right. And I stood up. I said, "Sorry, Mike, I don't normally do this, but would you mind having a photo?" And he went, "Yeah, no worries." So I stood up, and it's one of the best photographs that I've got. Absolutely love it. One of my pride and joys. And then after that, he said, and Jeff and Mike and I think Mark was still there, and they said, "Are you coming to Spearmint Rhino with us?" And I thought about that. I thought, geez, that'd be no. And then I had to say no to that because I didn't want to look like I was just following him around. So I said, no, you guys go. And so I didn't end up venturing to Spearmint Rhino. But it was one of the highlights of the trip.
For those of us who haven't been in that sort of setting, what do you say to someone like Mike Tyson? What do you talk about? Is it sporting stuff? Is it life?
No, I didn't talk to him.
You didn't. What? You didn't say anything to him.
I didn't. I
Were
said
you too scared to?
I said bugger all to him. I told you. I sat there staring at him.
I know, but you must have said something though.
No, I did. Would you mind having a photo, Mike? That's all I said to him.
That's the worst. That's terrible, mate. You got to do better than that.
What was I going to say to him?
I don't know. You're a good boxer.
I did go and watch him fight Lennox Lewis in Memphis when I had that year off. I did a bit of a tour through the United States, and I was lucky enough to get some good tickets to that fight. So I have watched him fight live. But no, I was like a scared little lamb. I didn't know what to say to him.
Now, this episode comes on the back of a huge episode last week with Denis Pagan, your former coach, and big reaction to that show. Some of the comments we got from Brod, all the best in your next chapter, Wayne. Great listen between coach and captain. Well done. Great show off to a good start. Would be ideal if it went for an hour each week. That was from Rob. From Frank. These two men gave me the greatest experience as a Kangaroo supporter throughout the 90s. Thank you. Great chat. Now,
well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
I don't listen or watch myself on anything, and never have. People might be surprised by that, but no, I don't.
So, have you spoken to Denis since then?
I have. Denis actually sent me a message, and he won't mind me saying this, obviously because it created a few headlines, and he thought that I wouldn't be happy about that, or he just said, "I hope you're okay, son. I hope I wasn't too brutal." I said, "No, you were honest," and that's exactly what this is about. It's about being honest and about being raw. And when we speak to people, and when we have our next guest, which will be the next episode, it is about people that have overcome adversity and gone through some heartache in their particular lives. And I'm fascinated to see how people, one, handle that adversity and how they get through it, but at the same time, then the support that they were given, how they got through it, all of those things that I'm fascinated by and impressed by and inspired by.
I did want to ask you about that because, I know you've gone through a lot of this stuff and you've spoken about some things before, but this is almost on another level, and your kids now are getting a little bit older. How do you handle that as a father now? Because when it's just yourself, I'd imagine you can compartmentalise that a little bit easier, when you're just thinking about you. But now you've got to think about kids that are starting to get to an age where they can see what's going on and they can hear and read and they're told things as well.
Yeah, it's tricky. Be fair to say they've gone through a bit already. At least I can sit here and I guess talk about those things. And I think the first thing you've got to try to do is you sit down and have conversations. And Ella said to me just the other day, I was over at Sally's.
And how old's she now? How old's Ella?
17. She's doing year 12. So I was over at Sally's having some dinner, and Ella said to me, "Dad, why did you have to tell the rest of the world that you pooed your pants?" And I said, "Well, Ella, I was 5. It's not like I pooed them last week in the street."
It's going to keep coming back to that quote, I think.
And Sally sort of questioned the same thing. Like, why did you have to talk about pooing your pants? Do you have to, be that raw? I said, well, I was talking about being an insecure kid that was really shy and, wouldn't stand up and say something like that. That's who I was at that age. And but yeah, they were confused by it. But I think as long as you tell them what, explain to them, and it's a constant conversation. It is with Charlotte as well. I think she said, "Dad, have you had 500 girlfriends?"
That's a tough one to answer.
I said, "I beg your pardon?" So I said, "Where did you get that figure from?" She said, "Well, you've got Mum, you went out with Sally, Jess, and I and then she reads about, or she hears about what's in the paper, and somehow she came up with this figure of why 500. Have you had 500 girlfriends?" I said, "No, I haven't had 500."
Yeah, some tough questions. Well, thanks for your insight there. I'm really looking forward to your next segment, which will be on a slightly lighter note than that. You're going to tell us how how to pour a beer. I won't give too much away about your technique, but you've been at me about this. I've never heard a bloke be so excited about pouring a beer. I didn't think it was that hard, but you reckon you've got some special insight that no one else in Australia does.
Nobody. Well, no. That's wrong. There's a lot of people out there that don't know how to pour a beer properly. So there is going to be a beer pouring segment.
I look forward to it. See you, Wayne.
See ya.